Hello, and welcome to today's podcast of Rev Up Health.
Yes, welcome. Today we're going to be talking a lot about basically fueling for performance and why is it that we run out of energy when we get into our midlife and beyond. So we're going to try to break that down a little bit today to kind of give you a little tips about, well, maybe what happens and why we're doing it and maybe what we can do to help counteract that. So
Yeah, and the second piece of this is recovery and how recovery really takes a big part in fueling and feeling energy.
and preparing for the next event or the next activity or exercise. So, or the
Yes.
next day for that
And
matter.
this could be for people who are doing endurance events or races or things like that.
Right.
We do those things, but this is also for anyone who's just looking to optimize
Feel better,
health.
more energy. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, you can get into the weeds about a lot of details, and there's a lot of papers and studies that you can find and support whatever belief or evidence that you need to display. But we're going to try to break it down a little bit and just kind of keep it more general and broad. There's a lot of studies out there that have looked into basic energy and metabolic energies, and as well as elite needs and fueling, refueling. But we're going to try to keep it kind of basic. And like Tandi said, I think this is something that this information, no matter where you're at in your exercise or your daily habits or your movement, I think you'll be able to at least kind of redirect maybe where you need to have some work done.
So we'll start with the energy equation in midlife and how it seems as though we have less energy as we age. And there are lots of reasons. Some of them we've talked about previously, but we've got hormonal changes that changes our energy levels are
Right.
along with
Testosterone, estrogen, even growth hormones and thyroid replacement, thyroid hormone too. So those typically can cause problems if they're not in balance or not optimized. And yes, we're going to have issues. And obviously we've spoken a lot about this in the past, but when we get to be our 30s, we start declining. And so it takes knowledge to know what's happening and maybe what you can do to help kind of get you through those midlife years.
And so all of those things that are declining as we age in turn decline our metabolic rate. Our mitochondrial function is not as great. All of these things affect energy.
Right. So obviously we all know that mitochondrial efficiency, those are the ones that create the energy that we need. And so whether it's a cellular level or receptor level or a hormone level or just basically environmental causes, I mean, there's a lot of things that deplete our mitochondrial efficiency and numbers for that matter too. So we can deplete our numbers. And then we want to have good mitochondria. We want to have the ones that are producing the best amount of energy for us. So
another thing that can kind of help decline that energy is our overall exposure to environmental toxins or just environmental things that kind of deplete our energy, alcohol, smoking.
Right. Exposures.
Just environment.
Right.
In general.
Right. And then, of course, the things that kind of start to deplete just our ability just to recover in inflammatory process. So our recovery time and our inflammatory response, all that stuff basically starts to increase a little bit. It takes us a little longer. You've always heard this situation. It's like, okay, well, I've heard that the older you get, the harder it is to heal from something. And this is true. This is true.
So signs of poor energy fueling or poor recovery can be a lot of different things: fatigue, poor sleep, weight loss plateaus. So if you're trying really hard to change your body composition and you're doing really well, and then all of a sudden you're doing the same thing and you're not seeing anything change, that could be due to some of these things.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, it's just a decrease in exercise tolerance. I mean, maybe it's not as easy to exercise as it used to be, obviously, for some individuals. And maybe still putting in the hours, but you're not getting the response that you would expect. And maybe it's getting a little harder to get the response in the gym or on the track or out on the road. So that makes a difference. When we get older, we start noticing those things.
Yes. And I think here is the point where we need to talk about the fact that listening to our bodies when it's starting to send us these signals like fatigue and all those things we just talked about, listening to our body and honoring what it's saying.
Right.
And making a conscious effort to not just push through like we always did or had in the past.
Right. Yeah, that's certainly true. And obviously, the more experience you get into certain activities and exercise that you do, then you start to learn. It's like, okay, I better not run out of the gates here real hard on this event. So I can tell you from personal experience that when I'm running a marathon, if I run too hard and too fast, I have problems with absorption of liquids and fuel. And so when that starts happening, then you've got to slow down. And you may think that you've got the right amount of hydration or the right amount of electrolytes or the right amount of carbs or protein, but you have to listen to what's going on. And your body will tell you, you just need to learn how to listen. So.
Yes. And that's true even for your daily workout. It's just so important to master that technique of listening to your body so that you can decide, start that first bit of your exercise. And if it doesn't feel like a good day, then don't go hard.
Right.
Use this as a recovery day.
So we always talk about give it 10 minutes and see how you feel. If it feels good, go for it. If it doesn't, it's a recovery day.
So looking at fueling specifically for performance and energy, we're looking at protein is really big. It's very important to get the amount of protein that you need.
Protein, we all have muscle mass wasting that starts to occur, yes, in our 30s. And so we've got to do what we can do to try to maintain and build. And yes, at any age, you can build muscle. So just because you didn't start lifting weights or doing resistance training or plyometrics when you were in your younger years, doesn't mean that it's not going to be effective for you. So that protein is so vitally important to give your body a chance to produce muscle, to synthesize muscle. And so we like to shoot for about 1 gram. It's just kind of a good ballpark figure for about a 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. Ideal body weight's the key there.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, it's really
a lot of protein.
It's tough to get that much protein, and you really have to work at it. And we talk about a lot about different types of factors and points of our nutrition, but protein really needs to be a primary level of interest for individuals to maintain that muscle. And muscle is important for not only just performance, but also for bone health, as we've spoke on many podcasts about that too.
Another thing, carbs are not the enemy.
Yeah.
There is a place for carbs, especially around the time of your workout, to help fuel, and healthy fats.
Right.
Are a must.
Yeah, those carbs. I mean, it's so important to have carbs on board. A lot of people think, well, I don't want to eat the carbs, but because I want to lose the weight or I want to try to improve my body composition. But you need the carbohydrates to have an adequate performance so that you can get the best out of your activity that you're actually in. So it's so important. And that's also, the longer your activity or your event is, the more important those carbs become too. So I've seen a lot of information out there, but 6 to 8 grams of carbs per pound of body weight per day is a good thing to shoot for. But
say that again.
Yeah, 6 to 8 grams of carbs per pound of ideal body weight per day. I've seen those.
That's a lot.
That is quite a bit. But you're looking about, those are levels where we typically will see for people that have a moderate amount of activity or an exercise. So now it's going to be lower than that. It's going to be probably half that if you're of a sedentary environment, or maybe you're just working and you're not doing activity. But if you're going to go out and do activity and exercise, we need to get carbs in. That's how your muscle is going to replenish its glycogen stores. And we need that.
And it's going to be important that those carbs are from a good carbs, not the refined grains and sugars.
Right.
Carbs. We want vegetables.
Good vegetable sources. Grain sources are okay too. The problem we kind of sometimes can get into vegetable sources is fiber. Now, we all need a good 35 grams of fiber a day, but in some situations, if you're trying to get majority of your carbs from those types of high fibered foods, well, then you're gonna spend some time on going to the bathroom too. So it's one of those things where you don't want to be out on a 2 or 3, 4 mile run and not be near a porta potty in that situation. So.
And we kind of glazed over healthy fats there, but healthy fats are really important, not only for fuel, but to help your body feel satiated.
Correct. Right. Yeah. It's very important for hormone support. and optimization there too. So, but that's a good source of long-term energy also. The healthy fats are.
So meal timing, there are a lot of schools of thought about how you fuel your body in relation to a workout, to a race, all the things. And while there are lots of good guidelines, it is something that you have to kind of see what works for you. There isn't really a prescription to say this is going to help everyone all the time. There just isn't such thing.
Yeah. In your ability to tolerate those types of fuelings will change as we get older too. So simply is something that nothing more than just simply texture. For me, that's kind of the biggest issue I have in some situations during exercise is I just can't tolerate textures. I mean, I know what I would ideally need to take in, but I just can't tolerate it. So you have to look at their alternate sources, and that changes. So, and then the post-workout recovery window is also, it's more important for women than it is really for men. Men, we kind of got a bigger window to replenish those carbs, whereas the women typically have a little bit narrower window. So it's good within a good hour or so to try to replenish those carbs and those proteins for that glycogen and muscle repair.
And then hydration is another piece of fueling your body that a lot of people overlook. And I would be one of those people. It is very hard for me to get the amount of hydration that I need in a day. And the average kind of recommendation is half your body weight in ounces of water per day. Or
good general rule of thumb. It's something that's easy to kind of remember. So it can really be a substantial amount. And like you say, it's just tough. Some people, it's like, oh, I can't drink water. I don't like water. Well, put something in it to where you can actually tolerate it then. Or
electrolytes are really important to have in your water, especially if you're sweating. I mean, really, anytime electrolytes are great.
Yeah. Sodium, potassium, magnesium, those guys are important parts for fueling energy and cellular health. So,
and they help us absorb that hydration better. So
exactly.
Definitely good to do that. And there are,
and of course, the hot climates, and if we're going to be out exercising or having activities in hot climates, it's going to require that we have more attention to the electrolyte replenishment. So,
yeah, I think as we were kind of talking about this podcast and what we were going to talk about, we both had some examples of when we were doing an event and we realized that we hadn't fueled or hydrated properly. I think the biggest one for me recently was our race in Bhutan, where I really noticed about mile 8 to 10 that I had not fueled properly. And it starts the day before.
Yeah. And there was not, to be quite honest, perfectly honest, there was not a lot of refueling stops on that race particularly. So it just makes you more aware of the fact, okay, I really got to take in a lot of fuel. And it's not something that, the way I look at refueling and electrolytes and hydration is that I am going to start off great, but I am going to fall behind instantly. I am not going to be able to keep up. And so you have to be completely aware of the fact that you have to hydrate and get those electrolytes up as much as you can. And then on the early days, and I see it now too, you see people that think, well, I'm going to hydrate up an hour or 30 minutes before the race. I'm going to hydrate up. And those are the people that can't find a close enough porta potty because they're basically spilling out all the electrolytes and the fluids that they've overconsumed. So it's not, yes, you want to be hydrated and replenished, have your tank full, but you want to make sure that you try to keep what you're losing out because that goes quicker than you think.
That is.
I mean, yeah, my event that I specifically remember is probably the one that I literally had the worst time was when I ran the Great Wall Marathon. I literally lost it. I had hit the wall and had to sit down, literally hit the wall. I sat down on that wall, which is kind of, well, no pun intended. But yeah, that's when you run out of steam, when you run out of electrolyte, you run out of glucose, it's there. It's a real thing. To try to maintain that hydration is so key.
So moving on, nutrition and supplements that we can support recovery with in really any time, but midlife in particularly.
The anti-inflammatories, obviously, those are, and we're not talking about ibuprofen. Advil, those types of things. It's more omega-3s, turmeric, magnesium, even tart cherry juice, glutathione even. I actually like to try to suggest for people, but it's those types of things can help reduce the inflammatory response both before and during the recovery phase for folks.
And then for muscle recovery support, creatine, protein supplementation, branched chain amino acids.
Yeah, like leucine, isoleucine, valine. Those types of branched chain amino acids are important for muscle synthesis. We need those to reconstruct what we just got through trying to adapt our body to.
And then MitoPure, the urolithin A.
A little plug for Timeline here. Yes, MitoPure.
That's something that we really noticed when we started taking that supplement regularly, that our recovery.
Right. Kind of your energy, your strength, and recovery is really good with that. Yeah. It's naturally produced in our gut, but most of us don't have that ability to do that. And so it's real important if you can replenish that or supplement that works very well. And we're talking about probably 10 to 15% improvement in that, I think, too.
Gut health is good for recovery, making sure that your gut is moving the way it should. So fiber, probiotics, prebiotics, fermented foods are all things that can help with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And specific to midlife, nutrient absorption changes that occur, calcium, vitamin D, the B vitamins, those things become more of an issue. I can't tell you how many times that we've seen people that are low on their vitamin D. I mean, if you're not supplementing it, you're low. It's just the simple fact of it. We're just indoor bodies these days. We're not outdoors as much. So it's hard to replenish that.
So recovery. One of the main reasons why recovery gets more important as we age is that we have slower muscle repair, we have more inflammation, our sleep quality is not as good as it used to be. Sleep is when we recover.
Right. Sleep hygiene is very important, and getting that 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night, that's how your body repairs and regenerates. And that's when the action occurs, both from a central nervous system, neuroplastic events, but as well as muscle and repair. So it's certainly something that is overlooked.
Yes. And then active recovery. When we talk about recovery, sometimes that is rest, and sometimes it is going for a walk, just staying active, but just slower than you're used to on your regular days. There's also the techie type things, the red light therapy, the saunas, the cold plunge,
massage guns, the boots, compressive devices. So there's all kinds of those options things. And then there's also, of course, hormone evaluation. If you got better balance in your hormones, then you're going to recover better. You're going to feel better. You're going to have better energy. You're going to be able to improve your muscle synthesis too.
So a sample day of what it looks like, or I think really you have to look a little bit bigger, like at a week.
Yeah.
Because it is so important that you get in your strength training, you get in your cardio or VO2 max training, and then still have time for recovery
man. And I like to try to vary my types of activities, maybe a cardiopulmonary day, and then the next day do more maybe arms, core, things like that. But it's certainly nice to give a body part a rest. And I'm also of the school of thought, as well as some of the research studies that maybe suggest that too, that I don't train to failure with lifting heavy weights or doing resistance training. And likewise, the same thing with cardiopulmonary endurance. I don't want to go out and just exhaust myself sometimes from that standpoint, because it's just going to make it easier for you to be able to perform, because you're going to recover faster and then you're ready to go again to get the good quality of workout.
Yeah. And I would say my favorite recovery is hot. I like a sauna or a hot tub, either of those things. So I try to work that into my weeks.
Sun and cold plunge has got a lot of research and studies that support it. So it does work. It's hard to...
We haven't really got too into the cold plunging yet.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get into a hot sauna. That's for sure. I suffered with that, but I try sometimes. You're much better at it than I am.
Yes, the heat, but the cold, I don't know. That's still out.
I'd be better.
I have this idea that I want to do it and experience it, but still kind of playing around with that.
Yeah. Some of the common mistakes too that we have, and skipping meals. You really can't skip meals. You can't undereat your protein. Those types of things. You really got to keep that going. I don't skip meals very much. I try to stay with some of the intermittent fasting techniques as much as I can, but I'm just not able to do that. I need that calorie intake personally.
Yes, but I would say, and this is a perfect example of how every body is different. And while you can't skip a meal, I can pretty easily skip a meal. And when I say skip a meal, it really doesn't even feel like I'm skipping a meal, but I basically will have 2 meals a day and maybe then have a supplemental protein shake.
Right. Right.
And that works for me right now. And it may not work for me that way later, but right now that works for me. And yes, it is true that he needs more calories.
Yeah. It's part of genetics. It's the fact of life that men are blessed with the ability to have a higher basal metabolic rates than women are. So it's just part of it. And there's a Harris-Benedict equation that you can use to see what your basal metabolic rate is, what it takes for you to just survive, to just sit still and breathe and digest. And you can figure that out. And it's surprising, but it's going to be a couple hundred calories difference for men versus women of the same age group.
Yes.
And then overtraining is also a common mistake. I kind of learned that a long time ago. If you're overtraining, you're really getting yourself fatigued, and you can't exercise your way out of a bad night's sleep. You just can't do it. You need your sleep. You've got to recover. And if you're overtraining, thinking, oh, I got to go out and run these extra few miles, or I got to go do some more work in that gym. Well, you know what? Maybe you don't. Maybe it's best for you to just get some rest, recovery, eat well, get back up the next day, and you're going to be way more effective. But those types of common mistakes are something that we've seen individuals in our practice that do overtrain, and they will alter and they will have imbalances in their hormone levels, and they will feel it. And it's true. It's a true story.
So before we kind of finish up for the day, I really wanted to talk about kind of changing the mindset, because we are transitioning from a kind of diet culture to like fueling your body isn't a diet. Fueling your body is an investment in your energy and in what you want the new
Right. And
you
longevity.
to be. Yeah.
Function
Sure. So we want to switch from I need to eat less to stay lean. We need to rewrite that and say I need to eat better and enough to power my muscles, my brain, and my recovery.
Yeah, I like that.
And then the recovery as a weakness, right? Which really recovery is strategic in growing your strength. So changing the old mindset of no pain, no gain to if I don't recover, I can't grow stronger.
Yeah, it's not laziness. Recovery is not looked at as laziness. It's a part of training, and it's part of active repair, and it has to be incorporated. You may see these trying to train for this, or I'm trying to train for that, and you have to build in these off days, and that is absolutely true. And honestly, I think these off days are probably not in there enough. I think there needs to be even an increase in that. So,
Yeah. Another reframe is health is not just for today, it's for life. So go from the old mindset of I just want to fix this now to how do I want to feel, move, and live 20 years from now?
I mean, that's kind of what it's all about. I mean, we may be wanting to enter this event or go on this long hike or do something with our family or friends now, but if you plan on continuing to do that and do that into your older ages, then this is certainly something you have to keep in mind.
Yeah. And then comparing ourselves, which I don't know how many times I've heard people say, well, I used to be like this. But when we look at, I used to be able to run 5 miles on no sleep and 2 cups of coffee. Well, my body has different strengths now, and that's not a bad thing. We have to embrace where we are right now. And then lastly, I'm aiming for the idea of I just want to get back to normal. which I understand and is definitely a good thing. But I think if you take a mindset of I'm aiming for optimal, all physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I'm aiming for optimal because so much changes as we age. And it's
Right.
just so important to
And
honor.
the way we feel.
Yeah.
It's physiology, it's science, the reason why you feel like this. And it's all something that everybody goes through. You live long enough, you're going to go through it, whether you're a man or a woman. It's part of it. It's like menopause. You're going to go through it. But it's certainly something where we hope that you are able to take bits and pieces of what we talked about today and kind of reevaluate your own activity levels, your own nutrition, your own mindset about where you are, what you want to do, and what you hope to do, and kind of where you want to be when you get older.
Yep. So, key takeaways: smart fueling, strategic hydration, prioritizing recovery, support sustainable energy and performance.
Yep. All right. We hope that y'all learned something. If you have questions, reach out to us, of course, or follow us at Revelation Health KC. We hope you have a healthy day.